Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, and we're back with a bonus episode this week in our Darts Legend series. Yes, bringing you two episodes in the series this week. Monday, we brought you our chat with the co-founder of the PDC, Dick Alex, and today we're bringing you another episode. This time, we're joined by a two-time world champion and one of the most memorable characters there is in the game, Ted Hankey. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the two-time world champion, Ted Hankey. Thank you very much for the time, Ted. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm fine, mate. It's no problem. That's good. It's nice to be able to get back to a little bit of normality at the moment, isn't it?
It certainly is, and we're starting all these interviews that we do on the Darts Legend series by going right back to the beginning with our guests. And for you, how did you first start in darts?
Oh, it's a long time ago. I always played darts when I was about 9 years old, and I used to do a lot of the Airfix models and all that, and I got one for my birthday off my mum, and basically it was just two pieces, so we decided to take that back, got me a dartboard. Obviously we watched it on television because my mum was always watching, and just went from there really. I got into playing in the pubs and clubs when I went out with my dad with all the people there. Then I got involved into the leagues. Basically I dominated most of the leagues in Stoke because I just kept practicing. Then went to obviously Super League, County, went out on the real stage, and it was a great journey, I can tell you.
Yeah, and we're going to get on to some of the moments that you've had in the game. And you mentioned their family, you mentioned watching darts on TV as well. Who were your darting inspirations growing up?
To be honest, I used to like everybody. I mean, Eric was always the main man. Eric was on, everybody wanted to watch him. But obviously, John was always there, John Rowe, Jockey, Big Cliff. I've spent a bit of time with him in the past, a lovely fella, Big Cliff. Just look, basically everybody that you saw on television made the game what it is. And I just, now, as I'm out there, especially now, I do some work with John and Dennis and what have you, and it's great to be around them guys. Yeah,
and your first Lakeside, 1998, just in your late 20s, but just before then you had a great run at the World Masters towards the end of 1997, getting to the semi-finals, just losing out to Ronnie Baxter. What are your memories of your first big run in a major event like that?
To be honest with you, I try and forget that because that was a game I never should have lost in a million years. I missed so many doubles. Ronnie's a great player, always has been, always will be. I think Ronnie will play darts till the day he dies. But, when I got on that stage and I was playing on the floor, I just literally blew everybody away, got on the stage, played Ronnie, and I was in charge of every single leg, but I couldn't hit a double. And Ronnie didn't. And
so you have a big run at the World Masters, things are progressing for you, you get to Lakeside 1998. How are you feeling turning up to that iconic venue, a venue that you've watched on TV, I suppose, a few times to play there for the first time?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've been through the playoffs quite a few times before that, and obviously it was extremely hard. I lost in the last game against Richie Davis, and then I've lost in the final game against, I can't remember, somebody else. Bruno Reyes. And this time I was playing John Roberts. The lost captain at the time, lovely fella John, and I got through and beat him, and I just couldn't believe it. And then obviously I just had to knuckle down, practice. Then got to Lakeside, and it was just like it was something else. At the time I was friends with the likes of Chris Mason, Kevin Painter and all that, and the Friday night before I had to play on the Saturday, I was at the bar with Kev, and Kev said, he says, you've done well, you know what you've done here. He said, but it's a different world out there when you've got 1,500 people saying that. I said, don't worry about it, I'll be alright. I walked out and I just never looked back. I played an Australian first man, I can't remember his name now. And I always remember that when I walked off the stage, I'd had the highest finishing average ever at Lakeside. I thought, well, that's not a bad start, then, is it?
I mean, you look 101 average in terms of debuts in any world championship. That's right up there, isn't it?
Yeah. So, some people take to it and some people don't. And I just walked on the stage and I just took to it and I just loved it. I just wanted to just keep going and going and going, and that's where I got to where I've got to, really.
To put a performance in like that, I know you're still relatively new to the stage, but did things change a little bit for you in your mindset after that? Did you think, wow, I could really achieve something if I can play like that on stage?
Well, no, not really. I just basically, I was always the same. I just went out and played darts in my best of ability, always trying to win. I knew I had the ability, and so did a lot of other people, so it was just a case of just going out and playing one game at a time.
So you get to the quarterfinals, your first Lakeside. The following year, 1999, a big win for you come in at the Dutch Open, beating a certain Raymond van Barneveld on the way in the semi-finals as well.
Yeah, but I mean Raymond's a great lad. A lot of people don't like Raymond, but a lot of people don't understand him. He's a lovely fella. I get on well with him, and I basically made him my target. At that time, once I got to the quarterfinals at Lakeside, I knew that I was capable of beating anybody, anywhere on the planet. And I made Raymond my target, and to get up there and beat him in a semi-final was absolutely amazing, to be honest. I actually missed double 12.9 darts as well against him. But yeah, he's a lovely fellow, and I enjoyed that game.
And the following year, 2000, I'm sure it's a year that you remember very fondly. 20-year anniversary this year, actually. But you go in as the fifth seed, your third Lakeside, just before the tournament gets underway. How are you feeling going into what turns out to be a memorable week for you?
To be honest with you, I mean, I looked at the draw, like everybody looks at the draw, and I thought to myself, you know, if I can get a couple of good games in it, I might have a chance of getting somewhere down to the back end of this tournament. And I was playing Bob Taylor first round. We all mate Bob, love Bob to bits, honestly, and it wasn't the best game in the world, me and Bob, but once I got past him, I thought, right, now this is my chance to go and have a go. And I did. I think it was, I forget now, Steve somebody in the second round. And quarterfinals, I used to know it all, I forgot it now, quarterfinals I can't remember now.
But it's the game that everyone will remember, of course, is the semi-final with Chris Mason. You mentioned him there a moment ago, and he beats Raymond van Barneveld in the first round. He was going for a hat-trick at Lakesides, and 22 180s from you, 4-2 down, you come back and win 5-4. It's one of the most iconic games there was at the Lakeside.
Well, that is the best game, I dare say, that I'll ever play, because at 4-2, Macy's 4-2, he wants double 8 to put me out, and he is by far the better player on the stage between the two of us. And he misses the double 8, and I don't know, something just clicked. I went on a 180 mission. If I could hit a 180, no matter what was left, I was hitting a 180. And I could see that was bothering, leg after leg after leg. And me and Mace talk about it a lot of times after, and there were a lot of good fun, me and Mace. And I played him this year. Last year, beginning of last year, and he beat me for the first time since then. They said I've waited 20 years for that. But that game was so much special because, like I say, 22 180s. Who knows? You know, you look at what happens now. The PDC players, they play a lot more longer format now. So you got the likes of Adrian Lewis. I don't think anybody's beat 22 yet. I'm not sure, maybe yet. But at that time, it was 11 sets, and 22 180s and 11 sets was unreal. I think Mace hit something like about 13 or 14 as well. So it was a fantastic game, like you say.
Yeah, it really was. And to come off the stage after that, win the game, get through to your first Lakeside final, and you don't have too long really to get over that one and then get up for the next game the following day, playing in a world final for the first time.
No, well, I've walked off there, obviously. I've done the interviews and everything, got something to eat, gone back with my mum and dad and thinking, you know, I'm in the final here. And that's when it sorted out. I'm thinking, wow, I'm in the final, I can be world champion. But I was calm, I was cool about it. Did everything right again the next day before the match. I was right. As soon as I walked out on that stage, I froze. And that showed in the first leg. Because I think I had something like about 20 odd darts at double one to big money in the first leg. And, you know, it was a frightening experience, but once I got past that first leg, I just switched off and I just went into just bash mode. And unfortunately for Ron, he didn't play as well as he can, and he missed a lot of doubles, but I just took all my chances.
Yeah, you did, and you go 5-0 up at the break. Obviously, at that point, it's still first to 6 sets to the final, but coming off 5-0 up, I mean, you only need to win one more set, but it's the hardest one to win, isn't it, to get over the line?
Well, to be honest with you, I've walked off that stage at 5-0. I was on backstage. My dad's coming to me. My dad's talking to me, and I never answered him. I'm just thinking, just concentrate on the board. Just have your 5 minutes here. And so I never spoke to my dad, but he was talking to me. I think he understood what I was doing. Just had me practice, walk back out, and then, you know, it's incredible to think how I won it at the 170 because everybody asks, why did you leave a 170? I said, I didn't. I accidentally left it. Because when you last start, I thought, if I hit the ball, I know I've got a shot. So it's hit the 25, I've turned around, and I've seen the 170, and I was thinking, trying to work it out, because it was 48 the total score to lead it. And I'm thinking, is that right? Yeah, it is. And all year, while I've been doing exhibitions, I kept leaving the 170 and never hit it once. It's unbelievable that it went in this time. It's just unreal. So, yeah, it was a great, great feeling.
Yeah, not a bad time to hit it, and that gave you an extra bit of money as well with the high checkout. But as you mentioned there, you leave the 170, the previous throw, you go to the board on 218, treble 120, and then you last start hitting the 25 to leave the 170. Yeah. Is that the best single ball that you've hit, do you reckon?
Well, more than likely, but like I said, once I hit the 23, I hadn't even started to do that. All I got in my head is if I hit the ball here, I've got a shot. Never even thought that in 25 left to 170. Just incredible thing the way it happened. And
so you become a world champion. You beat Ronnie 6-0 in the final, and I was watching back a few bits of it online earlier, and you go backstage with Ronnie for the post match, and the first thing you say is you can't believe it. You're still a little bit in shock of what you've been able to achieve.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, everybody was there clapping and what have you. I mean, I felt bad for Ronnie, because I mean, Ronnie was all right. He wasn't a bad lad. He had his problems in the game and what have you, but he was a great, great player. But I felt previous year he'd lost in the final to Raymond as well. But, you know, it is what it is. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It was meant to be for me. So, you know, I'll never forget that day, to be honest.
And what was it like that year? You're now a world champion. What was it like the year being a world champion? I mean, one of the big highlights that's got to jump off the page is representing England, going to Holland, winning the Europe Cup, the team event, and getting to the final of the pairs with Mervyn King as well. What was that year like?
I mean, all year I never stopped, and you know, I was still the same player as what I was before. I was still doing the same things and everything. I still got all my mates around me, like Andy Jenkins, Colin, one painter, mates. You know, we all still stayed together and had a laugh and a joke. And like I say, I got picked for England. Great experience. Enjoyed it, loved it. It was different because it was obviously a different setup. You know, I enjoyed everything that I did at the time. It's a shame that things aren't what they used to be, because I wish I could go back and do it again, because it meant that much to me all through the time. With the players I was with and the places I went to and the people I met, it was fantastic.
2001, you returned to the Lakeside as the defending champion, and the first game will be quite memorable for the streaker that you had, your game against Sean Greatbatch. What was that like? There was a bit of a break, wasn't there, during the game?
Well, it was just a strange thing, because I think we played the World Masters at the same time when they were playing the qualifiers at Lakeside at that time, and Sean qualified, the draw was done, it came out, and Sean was only a young lad then. You know, I think myself, this is a good boy, because I've watched him. I thought, this is a good boy, he can play darts, I've got to get my head on. I'm defending champion, pressure's on. So we've had a chat backstage before we've gone out, and we've gone out and started playing. I'm not dominating like I should do, and Sean's battling back, and all of a sudden, there's all this roar, and I'm trying to stand there to throw a dart, and next minute, this girl's run past and just stood in the middle of the off, and I'm thinking, what's going on? I turned around to Sean, Sean's laughing, and she just carried on running. We just couldn't play darts after that. We had to take it off. We were just in stitches backstage, and Sean was just laughing and laughing and laughing. He said, "What? First time I've got here, and I get this." He said, "I felt sorry for him, but it was funny." And obviously, I went on to beat him. But yeah, it's just one of them things. It just seems that my name always seems to pop up in these things.
Some big wins for you though that year on your way to getting to the final. Raymond van Barneveld, you beat him in a last set. Andy Fordham as well, you beat him in the semis to get to the final, and you're back in another final. What's it like, the nerves going into that game against John Walton? Because it's a big tie, isn't it? The reigning world master against the reigning world champion.
Well, you know, the thing is, it was a strange setup, because when we all got to Lakeside, everybody was picking who was going to win it, and everybody had gone for Fordham. Another good mate of mine, Andy, lovely lad, Andy. If you could ever meet a nicer man on the planet, tell me, but I don't think you can. But they're all picking Fordham, and I said, I tell you what, I bet you lot as much as you want, I'm in the final on the last day. And they all just laughed. Then I've come to going through the stages, and one at a time, it sort of got easier. I can't explain it. Normally, as a defending champion, you'd be under pressure every game, but I wasn't. I just sort of felt so much at ease and so relaxed. Then I'm playing Raymond, but like I said, I always made Raymond my target, and I was so comfortable against him. We had a great game. I beat him 5-4, and I'm thinking, I'm in here. I'm on again. Then you can relax even more, because at the time, once you got to the semi-finals, you were guaranteed to go back to Lakeside the year after, whether you travel and got points or not. I got myself in the final after beating Andy with a 1-4-4 finish, which I'm sure it was. And I'm just thinking to myself, I've beaten all the best players here. I've got John in the final. I know he's done well. He's had a good run at Masters. He's won the Masters. We know he can play, but I should play him off the board. And I didn't prepare right. I've walked out there, and John has just literally ripped me head off. What a player. And after that, all year, John Boy Walton won everything. He proved his quality and class of what a great dart player he really was, and a proper world champion. Brilliant lad. But that was my fault. I didn't prepare right, and that was a lesson that had to be learned.
And it's 8 years until you get to your next Lakeside final. I mean, how hard was it to get over that defeat? You mentioned there you didn't prepare right for it. Was it a hard one to get over then?
It was, but at the end of the day, like I said, it was my own fault, and you have to learn, well, hang on a minute, I'd made a mistake here. I should have shown a lot more respect to John than what I did. Just, you know, because he won the World Masters, he hadn't done anything else other than that, and you thought, well, beating everybody, I've beaten Fordham and Barnum, but that doesn't make any difference. It's on the day, and there's a lesson learned, but maybe there's a lesson I needed to learn, you know, which a lot of other dart players are going to do. But, you know, I kept battling, I kept going, I started winning tournaments on and off, you know, and I just basically kept, obviously my goal then was to get back to the final, and it took a long time. Like you said, it was 9 years.
I want to ask you as well about the darts that you use, because they're quite unique, I suppose, in terms of what we're seeing the professionals play with. It's quite a light dart, the smooth barrel. Is that something that you've always gone with, or did you tinker at the start? I know your darts are made by Windmill, aren't they?
Yeah, but I always use them for years and years. They do a copper tungsten 14 grams, and it was only about two or 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we decided to change because I wasn't getting out on what I wanted anymore. So I got Wenmo to make another set of darts for me, and that's what we use now.
So it's 2009, the second world title arrives. The previous year, though, if you'd have said when you were leaving the Lakeside at 2008 that you'd go on and win the title the following year, you probably wouldn't have believed it, because it was a tough time, wasn't it, that year? And I remember you spoke to Ray Stubbs, the BBC presenter, and you said you were thinking about possibly quitting the game. How close were you to giving up at that point?
It got to a stage where no matter what I did, I couldn't win, I couldn't do anything. I just literally couldn't. I was walking into tournaments getting beaten by people that, you know, without being disrespectful, just literally had no chance. And just things were just going wrong. Everything was going wrong. I'd had 3 car crashes within a space of a month. You know, it was just everything about my life was just wrong. But looking back, again, it's a lesson we have to learn, and we have to do things. So I battled on. I had my friends, Tony O'Shea, Darryl Fitton, Gary Robson. I was doing a lot of exhibition work with them, and they kept encouraging me and kept guiding me and helping me. And at the end of the day, to go and beat Tony in the final was, I don't know if sad's the right word, but it was down to him that I was there. You know what I mean? Yeah,
I remember watching back the post match after you beat Tony in the final, and you mentioned those 3 that helped you. They got you back going again. What was it that was the turning point for you in that year that got you back to those heights of winning another world title?
I basically just felt comfortable around people again, you know. I got these 3 guys in my corner that were just helping and guiding and just doing whatever they could do for me, and it was, rather than me being who I was, the big name and everything, where they were good dart players with their own names, but I was a big name, the former world champion. They were actually helping me instead of me helping them, and it felt good that somebody was doing that. So I just knuckled down and kept doing what they were saying, and in return I got the world title.
Yeah, and one of the big wins on the way to that second world title is beating another former champion, Martin Adams, who'd only won it a couple of years previously. You beat him in the semi-finals. You go into that final with Tony O'Shea, one of the guys that's helped you get back going again. How are you feeling going into that final? Obviously 8 years since your last world final.
Well, it was a strange one because Martin's always beating me on the stage at Lakeside, and he knew it, and me and Martin have a lot of fun as well, and he kept saying, you don't want to play me in a quarter-final, because I think he'd done me in 2 or 3 quarter-finals, and I've been in front of all of them, and I got him in the semis, and we had a great game. I think he finished 1-6-1 in one set, and I finished 1-6-1 in another set, and just kept battling and going, and once I beat him, I thought, hello, here we go. So I get to the next day, and I'm thinking, right, Tony, I can't remember last time I beat Tony if I've ever beaten him. This was a thing for me. So I'm thinking, well, at the end of the day, go out and just play darts, because also Law of Averages says one time you've got to beat the player, so just go and play. So I've walked out there, we've gone practicing, had a drink, gone on the stage, and I feel comfortable. And I'm playing well. I've got one person in the crowd keeps niggling at me, putting me up on certain finishes. Then I just settled down, and then I just went. And to be fair, Tony couldn't keep up with me, and he knew it, and I was just away. And then all of a sudden, you know, I'm sitting at 5-2 or 6-2, I can't remember. But I know I should have won the final. 7-2, 7-3, 7-4, 7-5, and ended up winning at 7-6. I have had that many different darts at doubles and different sets to win, it was unreal. Luckily, I got away with it, and Tony said to me after, you'll never ever do that again to me. He said, you never should have got away with that. I said, I know. I said, but it was down to you. So...
Yeah, and it was a great final, wasn't it? Going all the way to 13 sets. Obviously, you have the lead for quite a lot of it. But how are you feeling on the stage there? Tony's got it back to 6-all. You're going into that final set. What's going through your head at that point?
I'm just thinking to myself, I'm thinking, hang on a minute, Ted, come on, you're the best player. You've blown him off the board. You're running back in. Just go and play 3 steady legs. 3 steady legs, you can win this. Stop messing around. Just get your mind back on. He's going to do what he's going to do, but you've got to win your legs with the darts. You have to win your legs with the darts. And that's basically what I did. I think I broke him once, and I think I won the first leg, broke him, he took a leg, and I can't remember that, but I think I beat him 3-1 on that set, I'm sure I did. But yeah, there's another great feeling thinking, hello, done it again, here we go.
You look at what the format was like back then. You have the big break in the middle. You know, nowadays you have a break after a few sets, but you're 6-all and you're not going off the stage. You're staying on the stage. That's when it does separate the real class players, doesn't it? That are able to forget everything before then and switch on for the final set.
This is where I think darts at the moment needs to have a look at what it's doing. I mean, I know obviously TV is a big thing and advertisements need to be in there. You know, but to keep breaking every set, every 2 sets to me is spoiling the rhythm of a player. Because if a player's on a roll, he should be able to be on that roll. You go for 2 sets, you go off, you come back on, you're cold. How many times have you seen it? On Sky, on the BBC, or whichever channel it's on, you see a player going, and then you get this break after 2 sets, you come back out and got the same player. Darts needs to look at what they're doing to give players an actual chance to get into rhythm. I don't think there should be any breaks in a 5-set match. I think it should be played completely out. That's the start of any tournament. But you've got to look then, maybe at 7 sets, having a little break after 3 sets, then back out for the rest. You've got to look at it that way. I understand advertisement's a big part of any sport, but I think the game is suffering in that way, and certain players are suffering that way because they're not allowed to keep on going with the rhythm that they've got.
And so you come off the stage, a 2-time world champion. Not many players can say that they've won multiple world titles, but the contrast in fashion, I suppose, for the 2 finals, you win the first one 6-0, the second one goes all the way to a final set. When you look back at the 2 world title wins, the 2 tournaments, which one would you say you've played your best darts in?
That's an hard question. I wouldn't know. Because each game's different, and you've got to play at the highest level of your game anyway. I mean, they were both, to me, hard battles. Even though I beat Ronnie 6-0, I still have to concentrate and do what I'm doing. If you come down to intensity, obviously the one with Tony O'Shea, because he just kept coming and coming and coming and coming. So, but, the first world title's always going to be the one that's made you world champion, but the second one, to say, well, hang on a minute, it wasn't a fluke. Yeah, I've enjoyed both of them. I really have, but I don't know what I can say was the hardest one.
Well, the second one gets you in the Grand Slam for the first time later that year, towards the end of 2009. It's your first taste, if you like, of playing the PDC. For the first couple of years, you found it a bit interesting, shall we say, that the crowd and not getting the best of order like you used to most of the time with the Lakeside. What was it like turning up to Wolverhampton and playing in a PDC event like that for the first time?
Well, the thing is, I knew all the players anyway. I mean, I played darts with Phil before I even started getting on circuit, and Super Leagues in that round in Stoke when I lived in Stoke, the same as Phil. But to walk in there, it wasn't the problem with the organisation or the TV. The problem was the crowd. The crowds were anti-BDO, and that was where it was wrong, and they shouldn't have been. They should have been there to watch darts and dart players. Now, all the politics about the game should have been chucked out the window. And it always should have been. It never should have been come down to it. But that's what annoyed me more than anything. It was the fact that they weren't showing respect to the BDO players. Not just myself, to the BDO players themselves. The boos and everything. They just wanted the BDO players to get battered and get out of the building. The crowd. Obviously that's changed over time. But that was what it was at the time, and I really didn't like it.
Yeah, and we still see these days sometimes the players will get some flack off the crowd. I mean, the most famous one in recent times, Gerwyn Price over the last couple of years. But for you, during those early times in the Grand Slam, how much did the crowd affect you getting on your back like that?
To be honest, it just wasn't a game of darts to me. Without being disrespectful to the sponsors and the organisers, it just didn't mean nothing to me. I just wasn't interested. Because I thought, if this is how I'm going to play darts, I don't want to play darts. That's how I felt there at that time, to be honest.
Yeah, and the following year, though, you're back in the Grand Slam 2010 and some good wins that I'm sure you'll have some good memories from, beating Phil Taylor in the group stage, Michael van Gerwen, of course, before he becomes the force that he is. What was it like, that game against Phil? Because I remember there was a lot of build-up to that game, wasn't there, going up against Phil and you two? That was probably one of the first times you played in a big event like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like I say, I've known Phil since I was in Stoke when I was 17, 18, and he was playing and I was playing. He went his way and I went my way. But we've always been friends, me and Phil, still friends now. And at the time, it must have been about 5 weeks before that, 6 weeks before that, something like that. We was up in Inverness doing an exhibition head-to-head, and he literally blew me off the board 11-1. Literally, he just destroyed it, just like a monster. So when the draw came out for the Grand Slam, I thought, hello, got a chance here, different game now. It's on a proper stage in front of a crowd on TV. I've got to wake up, know who he is, know what he's about. You just got to play darts. So I just practiced and practiced and practiced. So obviously the build-up's come. We've gone and do the filming, what they want doing, this, that, and other. Talking to Phil backstage, he's talking to me, as you do, drink, what have you. Then we've walked out. Then I'm on mindset. Then I am concentrating more than I think I've ever concentrated in my life. And I just go out there and play darts. It's simple as, go and play darts how I can.
And it's a couple of years later that you make the switch over to the PDC. You accept their offer of a tour card, but I suppose you're getting a little bit of a taste those couple of years before then of the Grand Slam. Was there any point that you maybe thought about making the switch to the PDC before you did?
The thing is, always there, but I always loved the BDO. I always enjoyed playing in the BDO. But certain people around me said, you know, is it time to maybe you go and have a look at this? I said, okay, let's see. Let's see what happens at this Lakeside, and then let's make a decision. So, obviously, what happened with that happened, and I went over there, and it was great to start off, because I was back with all my old mates, the likes of Mason, Painter, Colin Monk, you know, everybody was there. But it was different. And in saying that, I can't explain what I mean, but it was different. It wasn't these... Like, you got in the BDO tournaments, you went with all your mates, having a laugh and a joke, a drink, playing around, going out at night time, having a meal. There, it was bang, and that was it. There was no mixing together, there was no going out drinking together. It was hard work. It was more like going to an office and working than going out and playing the sport that you loved.
And you touched on it there, the Lakeside, before you make the switch 2012, you have a great run getting to the semi-finals, and I suppose it's a game that goes down a little bit of controversy with it against Christian Kist 5-all, and I know you made the accusations afterward about the draft on the stage. What are your memories of that? Because 5-all is going into a final set. What do you think happened on the stage at that point?
Well, again, to be honest, that was a game I never should have lost in a million years, but I did. But again, was there air conditioning? I felt a breeze. At the end of the day, there was that much going on. It wasn't proper full concentration. I should have basically not done what I'd done at the time. I should have discussed it after and concentrated on the game, gone out and beat Christian, then hopefully gone out and won the final again. And then maybe I wouldn't have gone to the PDC anyway. But it was, again, it's a lesson learned. You've got to concentrate and be more direct about what you're doing. I'm there to play a game in darts and win it. What's coming after should not count. And that was maybe my biggest mistake. So at the end of the day, Christian beat me and he went on to win it. Whether it was air conditioning, whether it wasn't, whether it was just something in the head because I was upset with things, my mind wasn't right, you don't know. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. And you just got to move on from it.
Yeah, and as you touched on, you make the switch over after Lakeside to the PDC. You mentioned there to begin with it was difficult to maybe adjust to the new surroundings. What are the highlights really though that you can pick out from those couple of years playing in the PDC?
To be honest with you, the only thing that I enjoyed being there was actually seeing my old mates again because you didn't get time to see them. You know, I'm not going to knock the setup we got, the money we got, the 2D we got, everything else. I'm just not going to knock it that because it was brilliant. But it just didn't work for me, and I just didn't enjoy it a minute of it. Like I say, other than sitting around being with my old mates. And
it's that semi-final at the Lakeside gets you to the Grand Slam, and it's one of those games. A lot was talked about during the time the game against Michael van Gogh, and it turns out afterwards that you had a stroke. What are your memories really of that time? Because I know during that time there was a lot of people that were saying that it was other things, but how hard was it at that time?
The thing is, I don't really remember an awful lot about the game, but I do remember when I first went in there, I went to the official and said, look, I really don't feel well tonight. Is there any chance you give me a move? No, it's going to be this night. I said, like, fair enough, it's not a problem. And, you know, I'd say I had a stroke on the stage. I've gone home, I've got up next morning, I was really ill. I went to the hospital, I was there for 8 hours, and I've ended up in a room with 4 doctors in it, and they just basically told me overnight, that night, I'd ended up having a stroke, being diabetic, high blood pressure, my heart beating too fast, you name it, I got the lot, and I thought, Gordon Bennett, what's going on here? And that again is when my life changed, and my whole outset on playing darts changed again, because everything had to change.
For anyone to go through that is pretty difficult, but for you to go through that on stage and everyone's watching, you know, you got the crowd there, everyone watching at home, that must have been difficult really to maybe come back into darts after going through something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't a fact of coming back into it, because at the end of the day that can happen to anybody at any time, anywhere. And you know, all other people that have had strokes, you know, I feel for them because I know what it's like. It's hard work. But I basically just took the rest that I had to take and then went back out. But it was different because my body wasn't the same. I couldn't drink. I'd have a pint of beer and I was feeling dizzy. I couldn't drink. I was eating foods that I couldn't eat, and I was eating different foods which weren't suiting me. And I was just going to tournaments and losing first round. So everything was just different. Everything was just totally and utterly different, and it was so much hard work. But I was never going to give in, so I just kept going. And that's where the decline of where my career was, it just started to dip then.
Yeah, but it's a year later, I suppose you go back to Wolverhampton, go back to the Grand Slam and have a good run and a memorable comeback, 6-1 down against Simon Whitlock in the knockout stages. You come back and win 10-9. So there's some signs there that there is some of that quality that you've shown in the past that you're still able to produce on the stage.
Yeah, I mean, Simon's a good lad. I've got a lot of time for Simon as well. And, coming back from that, I thought, come on, you're actually doing well again here. He's backing me off the board, but I'm just doing little different things just to put him off, without trying to break the rules. And it worked for me. And I was away, and I was quite happy with that game, that result of that game.
A couple of months later, you lose your tour card, but you decide not to go to Q School. What was the thinking behind that? You wanted to move back over to the BDO?
Yeah, I was just... I was never happy there doing what I was doing, so I just decided that's where I was going to go back to. So I went back there and obviously tried to start again. And it was again that I started to enjoy the game because it wasn't the intensity of what happens in the PDC Tour of not being able to do what you do, mixing and all that. Going back into the BDO and be able to be with your mates, have a lap and do what you're doing without getting fined all the time, which is one of the big problems over there for me as well. So, yeah, I thought, I'll get back there, I'm going to start playing darts again, and that's where I went.
Yeah, and it's a couple of years later that you get back onto the Lakeside stage, 4 years after your previous appearance. You qualify through the rankings. What was it like going back to the Lakeside? Obviously, it was probably hard leaving it in 2012 with that game that we mentioned against Christian Kiss. What was it like going back to the Lakeside and playing there again?
Absolutely, totally different, and it was scary. It wasn't the confident me walking out there. It wasn't me thinking, oh God, what am I doing here? The stage looked too big. The board looked too small. As I could say, right, everything was wrong. And there was just no confidence or nothing at all there for me. It was if from when I first went there, when I just walked on and took it like a duck to water, I walked on there and just felt lost. I just felt like I was the only man on the planet, and it was horrible, to be honest. And obviously that's going to come down to the things that have happened to me in the past with, the illnesses and God knows why. It was hard work. It really was. But again, I kept battling, I tried, but it didn't work.
Yeah, you've had some hard times, and 4 years that was ago that your last World Championship appearance, but you're still playing on the circuit. We've seen you over the last 6 to 12 months appear in tournaments. I know it's difficult at the moment with the virus, everything's on lockdown, darts included, but for you, what's the future for you in darts? Where do you see yourself playing darts when we're out of this lockdown?
Well, it's been a couple of years since I lost my dad, and that just destroyed me. Once it gone, I just didn't want to go and play darts anymore. I was going to tournaments for the sake of just going, and again, just losing first round because my dad wasn't there no more. It was all for him and my mum. They were always there, but he just wasn't there no more, and it was hard work. So again, the three musketeers came out and helped me out, Darryl, Tony and Robbo, and got me guided and helped me, and just, to be fair to them, they actually came and watched me playing and actually came and supported me playing this time to try and get me going again. They were telling me off when I was doing things wrong, which I accept, but they've got me back to where I am again now. And now I've got a friend and crew, because I live in Crewe now, Gary Cooper, who is like a dad to me, a brother to me, everything that I need. And now I'm back where I want to be. I know that I can go out there and do what I want to do again. Because of people like him that are there. He's always been my friend, Gary, but now he's really stuck into me. And he goes out every night. Before the lockdown, he was out every single night practicing with me. Every afternoon he could. And he's got me to where I want to be.
That's great to hear. I know there's a lot of people listening, a lot of fans of yours that will be pleased that you're heading in the right direction again. I mean, for you, do you still feel like there's big titles, or there's something left for you to achieve in darts, that you've still got the ability to go and do that?
Yes, it is. I mean, I can go out and win any tournament. Once I'm 100% right, which I was getting there before the lockdown, I know I can go and win anything. The unfortunate situation is we've got the BDO and disarray at the moment. We don't know where it's going. Hopefully between them we can put it right. And if not, we're going to have to see where we're going. If it ends up I've got to go back to the PDC, I've got to find a different mindset and a different way of playing in the PDC. But if something can happen on the BDO side to pick it back up again, then that's going to be fantastic.
And we're finishing up all these chats that we're doing with our darts legends with a couple of questions, and the first of those is the future of darts. You touched on it there. The BDO's in some tough times at the moment. The PDC is obviously the leading force in darts at the moment, but a lot of your success has come in the BDO with those 2 world titles. So is it a little bit worrying that you look at the state of the BDO now, that there might not be another world championship for you to potentially play in the future?
No, I I think they will, because right now I know there's people and different organisations trying to sort it out between them. You know, you've got the WDF involved in it now, trying to do what they're doing. And I do think it'll happen. I mean, the WDF is a big organisation as well. And it still involves the same people that have always been involved in it. If they can work with the video and help the video and the video vice versa, they can push this on. And a lot of players feel that as well. And I do think it'll happen. What you've got to realise is a video can never go away. You've got all the counties, and the counties basically is what keep the video running. Them counties are not going to disappear, because there's what, 1 million dart players in the country, and they all want to play darts. It's not going to go away. It just needs to be fixed, and that's the only answer I can give to that.
And lastly, when you get asked what's your favourite moment in darts, I'm sure there's plenty to choose from. That the 170, of course, will stand out with that first world title. And you were one of the most popular characters, one of the big characters that there was in darts in your heyday, I suppose. What was your favourite moment?
Well, my favourite moment was when I actually became who I was, and I walked out on that Lakeside stage, and that crowd, that atmosphere every time was the most amazing feeling that you'll ever have in a lifetime. My favourite moment in darts was walking out on that Lakeside stage at its heyday.
Well, Ted, it's an absolute pleasure to chat to you, talk to you about a brilliant career that you've had in the game, and fingers crossed we're going to see you on those big stages again when we're back playing darts again. So thanks very much for your time.
Can I just say one thing before we go? I'd just like to thank Windmill for everything they've done during this lockdown, not just for me, but for all the dart players. They've helped us out, they've been on the phone talking to us, they give us some guidance, they give us all the equipment we need to have. And I think they're an absolutely amazing company. I'm not just saying that because I'm sponsored by them, but they've done everything for all the dart players, and I just want to say thank you to all of them, Ian Black and Simon Orr and everybody involved there.
Thanks again to Ted for joining us, and thanks as well to the guys over at Windmill who helped set up that interview for us. Really appreciate that. We'll be back on Monday with another episode in the Darts Legends series, going to be joined by Rod Harrington, so look forward to that one next week. We're also going to be back with a regular episode of the podcast on Thursday next week. Myself and Burton DeWitt, we're going to be back to look ahead to the return of the PDC Tour the following week, the summer series, and hopefully we'll have a few guests for you as well. So enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you on Monday.